Hello and welcome. My name is Miller Susan and I'm the Education Director at Live Arts, and welcome to the Talkback for We Are the Ones We Have Been Waiting For, Our Ancestors Breathing. Anyone in the cast and crew of We Are the Ones who is participating in the Talkback, please feel free to turn your cameras on now and join me. Hop on in. Thank you. We have a wonderful assortment of cast and crew who have joined us today. Thank you so much for making time for this conversation. I am thrilled to be able to host it, just like Live Arts was so honored to partner with you all in bringing this wonderful, incredible, very educational, beautiful production to our screens this summer, this late spring. Okay, so Zoom is inherently awkward and difficult to figure out. So I'm going to act like a teacher and I'm just going to call on you. I'm going to use the name that's on your screen and ask you to please introduce yourselves. And as part of your introduction, please share with us what role you played in the production and what brought you to the project, and anything else that you would like to add and you would like for our listeners to know about. And so actually, I'm going to start with Madi.
Hello. Um, so my name is Mariela Edwards. I go by Madi, and I am the one who conceived. Um, we are the ones we've been waiting for, our ancestors breathing, which started out as a closing program in 2019 for a year-long commitment that we had with Vivian Fagan, the founder of the literary collective. Okay, I should have this right by now, Vivian. Um, don't tell me. Oh, tell me. Unmute.
Vivian, do you want to say Literary Collective of Black Women, right?
No, oh, Writers Remembered.
Writers
That's what I
Remember.
always forget. Writers Remembered, a literary collective of Black women, affectionately known as the Collective. So, it briefly, after we met for a year, once a month. Now, I live in the DMV area. This was done in Charlottesville. So after meeting for 1 year, one Saturday or Sunday out of every month for a year, Vivian and I chatted, and she mentioned wanting to invite family and friends to at the Women's Initiative, which is one of the places that we met. And she mentioned that she wanted to have some type of closing programs for family and friends. And then, I had a vision of us being in white, coming in processional style. It kind of built on itself. And we are the ones we've been waiting for, basically, since I was born. And midway through, and I'm going to be short because I want everybody else to speak, but midway through the intermission, which was a 2 hour long production, the attendees came up to me as the MC, and I believe to Vivian, and said, we needed this. Thank you. And we would like for you, for this to be done again. And I do believe that, we were asked to do it in 2020. There were opportunities, but because of COVID. And then the next thing you know, Vivian called me and said that Jeremy had an interest in it. And here we are.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Kathy Englishholt, will you go next, please?
Certainly. Greetings. My name is Kathy English Holt, and I played the role of Nanny Helen Burroughs. And I was invited by Mariela Edwards. I'm here in the DMV in DC, where Ms. Burroughs did her work. And she came to me, it's been about 12, 13 years ago. I was very, very ill. And I went away on a retreat, and I took a book by Dr. Karen Davis about Nanny Helen Burroughs and Anna Julia Cooper on the upliftment of women. And at the time, I was really concerned about what was happening with my physical self, but my also mental and spiritual self. And Ms. Burroughs basically came to me and said, "You need to start a camp for girls." And so I conceived a camp for girls, founded I Things to Collard Greens here in Washington. This is our 11th year for girls ages 5 to 13. I had a theater background, in DC and other places. I've always been on stage primarily. And I made a decision at that point that I would no longer play any other role but that of Dr. Nanny Helen Burroughs. And she's a long-winded woman, let's put it that way. So it was very challenging for me to think about what to say in 5 minutes, because she improvs. I don't read, she just comes, and so that was an interesting experience for me. I didn't get everything in I needed to say. However, it was such an opportunity, and I'm so grateful that I was able to bring her again to Virginia, which was the birthplace of her, and she was from Orange, Virginia, and to take her there and have her speak to people in that area. So it was a delight. And she has been an instrumental force in my life. Pictures of her everywhere. She's my muse. She's the ancestor I call on for support with my summer work with the girls. And so that's me, and that's Miss Nanny Helen Burroughs, and I'm just her emissary.
Okay, being someone who runs camps myself, I'm gonna have a really hard time changing the subject from your camp because I want to hear all about it, but I'm gonna restrain myself. Okay, Betty James, please go next.
Hi, my name is Betty James. I was brought to the production by my sister, Mariela Edwards, the writer-director. I was a performer slash singer in a production, and I can just say that I was very, very appreciative to be a part of the production and be in the presence of these beautiful ladies, very aspiring. I'm just thankful to be amongst everybody's spirit. It was just great. That's all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Diane, would you mind going next?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm Diane Brown Towns, and I live in a historic Charlottesville. I think most of us who are from here know about Monticello and the presidential homes. And I visited that site in the 4th grade, and they didn't talk about enslaved people at all. There was no Mulberry Row, and the nailery where the young 10-year-old boys worked, none of that existed. And so I think that stuck with me, and I was a curious child and had a lot of questions about where the people that were supposed to be enslaved here. We had this book that we were learning from, and it was a book that predated Brown versus Board, and it was a 1950s book that talked about citizenship and how all children should be good. But the book was really for white kids. It really was not meant for Black kids. It was a 10-year-old book or 12-year-old book by the time we had the book, but it all talked about colonial history, but it didn't talk about it very much about Black people. So I thought the slavery maybe perhaps was a fairy tale. So I'm here because I believe in telling multivocal stories, and that's part of the work that I've done for quite a number of years, and I've enjoyed it, and I'm so happy to be among these talented, inspiring women that carry on the work of multivocal history.
Beautiful, thank you. Vivian, will you go next, please?
Sure, good evening. So my involvement in the project comes from the genesis of really of We Are the Ones We've Been Waiting For. Started from the project, right, as Maddie has said, Writers Remember, a literary collective of Black women. And my role, I was a vessel for the project. I wrote a grant for Writers Remembered, and that was the title, A Literary Collective of Black Women, after the devastating things happened in Charlottesville in 2017. There was a grant announcement called the Heal Charlottesville Fund. So this grant, I wrote it really to answer the part of the announcement for the grant was increasing awareness, education, and history telling. And I felt like my love and passion is literature, how can I create a project to, to address some of the concerns among the Black community and my circle of friends in a literary collective type of way. So that's how the literary collective, we call the collective, the Literary Collective of Black Women, came about. And from that, there came there's a short, if I can just take a little bit of time, I don't want to take much time either, like Marty was saying, but every time Marty and I get on here, and we have had a few interviews, I've accompanied her on some interviews leading up to the play. I just realized today, I never said how We Are the Ones We've Been Waiting For came about the title. I don't think we ever really addressed that. So I wanted to share that today. That was, let me go down a little bit because I took notes. I'm sorry, I'm not as graceful and eloquent as some people. I need notes. So I wanted to talk about how the title happened, because it sort of became a mantra for us. We are the ones we've been waiting for. And one of the goals that I wrote for the retreat, one of the things was to have a retreat as part of to have a keynote speaker, to have someone to facilitate the retreat. So the speaker facilitated, and she was wonderful and everything. But I was wondering, what should I name the retreat? And I couldn't think of any, like I wanted a theme, if you will. Couldn't think of anything. And of course, being the literary person that I am, I started thumbing through my books, my collection, and I came up to Alice Walker's book, We Are the Ones We've Been Waiting For, Inner Light in a Time of Darkness. And it just hit me like, this is what the retreat theme needs to be. And when it was time to, and that actually the title comes from a poem written by a lady named June Jordan. She was a poem during the Harlem Renaissance period. And the poem, it was really, the title is A Poem for South African Women. So the last line of the poem, the singular last line, is We Are the Ones We've Been Waiting For. And there's a story about that. I won't go into it. But she wrote that poem in honor of South African women who really put their whole bodies on the line to protest during apartheid in South Africa. So it was so appropriate that when it came time when Mary conceived the idea of the play, she's like, we have to use that title because we are a light in the time of darkness. We are, this is so appropriate for the times because, racism had come back and reared its ugly head in a major way, including racial violence toward African Americans and other people of color more recently. So therefore, Mary and I agreed, like, this title fits amazingly. It was like, as Mary has said before, so many things about this whole project, about We Are the Ones the performance has been divinely ordered. And I agree, wholeheartedly. So that's how the title came to be. And I just wanted to tell about one of the things we have forgotten is how the title of the production came about. So everything seems to have just happened in a divine way, and whatever we were hoping for really happened in that way. And we listened and were obedient and just applied what we were given by the Creator.
I couldn't agree more that it, at least I would say from the production side, from the live art side, it has seemed to be just an incredibly organic process, incorporating all these new technologies, all these different elements that weren't in your first production. And yet it has just seemed like the perfect graphic designer came to us. And, even though the weather was cold, it sort of informed your performances in the pavilion. And I don't know, I feel like it's been just from our perspective, I think it's been a really just a wonderfully positive and almost seamless, as much as these types of things can be seamless, process. I think we've lost Natalia, and I hope that I'm pronouncing her name correctly.
Natalia.
But
She's there.
Oh, she is. Oh,
Here.
okay. Oh, hi. Oh, hi. I'm so sorry. You were blinking in and out for some reason. Hi, and I'm sorry to mispronounce your name. Can you please introduce yourself? Thank you so much.
Hi, I am Natalia Sergi, and I played Lucy Craft Laney. And the way that I came to the production was through the collective. So when Vivian conceived of the idea of the collective, she sent out a message on a listserv for African American women. And at the time, I was actually living in Los Angeles. And trying to think about how am I going to integrate back into the Charlottesville community. Prior to going to Los Angeles, I lived here, worked at the Charlottesville City Schools, and I was trying to figure out how am I going to come back. And so when she sent out the notice and said, are there people who are interested? I immediately responded. So I love books. I have been trying to learn about my own history. So everything that she described, being a part of a sisterhood of Black women who would come together and do this exploration together, all of that appealed to me. The way that I came to play Lucy Craft Laney is that she was an educator. My entire career has been connected to education. I had never heard of her. And so for me, I was like, this is an opportunity for me to lift up educators who blazed trails, who did incredible things in the most difficult times to educate their people. Like, this is something that I have to do. I am not a creative like Mari and Vivian and Diane. That is not me. But I felt called to do this to represent her and the other ancestors who have educated us. You know, up until very recently in our history, you know, they have been the ones that have, you know, did what they needed to do to make sure that African American children had a high quality education so that they could progress, and as a way for our people to progress. So that's how I came to the collective and came to the production. And I have just really enjoyed the friendships that have developed amongst all of us, and just feel really blessed to have been a part of all of this and to walk with these ladies in life.
I love that. And actually your comment is a perfect springboard to something I wanted to, sort of a general question I wanted to throw out, which is, it does seem like, at least from these brief introductions, that not that many of you have a performance background. Some of you definitely do, but many of you don't. Can you talk about the process of transforming into, I mean, were your performances, did they sort of feel like channeling? Was there any sort of, was it intimidating? I would just love to hear anyone who has thoughts about that, speak to that a little bit.
I just want to, I'm not going to answer that, but I just have to tell Italia that I don't think after watching, let me look at her face. Wait, hold on, let me find her. Where are you, Italia? I don't think after watching your performance and your embodiment of Lucy Craft Laney, that you can say, walk through life and say that you are not a creative, because you were Lucy Craft Laney, and it was your emotions, the way you told that story, the way you invited us into your room. It was just very, very moving and captivating. So you are a creative, my darling.
Thank you.
I second that.
Spoken like a supportive director.
Here, here.
I think that's how me not having had this experience before really, I guess, transformed into Lucy Craft Laney. It really was through the support of all of the other ladies who are creative and who have had this experience, watching them, taking their direction, asking them for feedback, them challenging us to dig deeper, to study about the ladies and the pieces that we were portraying, and to really come to that. For me, there were a lot of parallels with Lucy Craft Laney in that, you know, she was an educator. That's where I've spent the vast majority of my careers, in education with children. Her father was a carpenter. That's how my dad started his construction career, as a carpenter. She loved books and learned to read early. It's how I would really love to spend most of my time, is in a book. So there are a lot of parallels with her that made it easy for me to understand and to feel the same things that she felt, in how she approached her work. So that I think for me was how I came to it. But I will say that the ladies pushing those of us who didn't have those experiences to really go deeper, to really lean into it, and having their models was really helpful.
Can I ask a question, Miller?
By all means.
Can you speak to Natalia, to T, the experience with T as a coach, and whether that helped you?
Yes, 100%. Having T there, she really, really helped us go deeper spiritually and really kind of connect to the people that we were portraying, but also connect to our ancestry, and I guess, the cultural pieces of who we are, and really challenged us to let go and lean into, you know, what our ancestors brought to this land, to acknowledge it, to accept it, and to really just go with it. So I really appreciated her being there. And I shared with them that she was kind of this missing piece to our puzzle, and just really appreciated her spending her time with us and sharing with us.
So for anyone who's watching who doesn't know, T. Ames is a longtime live arts volunteer, educator, and they are non-binary and use they, them pronouns, but that is just making sure that I'm putting that out there. And you sort of worked as an acting coach on this production. Is that, would you? Yeah,
Yes.
but also performed, but also ended up performing.
Yeah.
And an incredible vocalist, and I thought added a lot to that very beautiful musical interlude. How did that, was that part of the original production?
The singing? Yes, it was. It was a part of the original production. And basically what I did was, it was a 2-hour, about an hour, 15 minutes, 2-hour production. And initially, and Jeremy and Liz, now that I know how much we had to do for one, you must have been gulping hard when I said to you, oh, I took one play and wrote 4 different productions, and I wanted to do one, possibly do one every night. Because when I think of what we had, the 4 weeks that it took for one night, I know you guys were so gracious with that too. When I offered that, man, you guys were gracious.
Jeremy Pape, you're being called out. I think you need to pop in and speak to this compliment.
Thank you, Madi. We don't like to shy from challenges, but that would have been serious. That would have been a lot.
Yes. Yeah, no. Well, you were just so gracious though, and how you handled it. You kind of made it seem like I was making the decision. I mean, you left it up to me, but ultimately it couldn't have happened. We really couldn't have done it. It would have been too much time, too much money, all of that, you know.
We would have figured it out.
Yeah, of course, because you guys are the bomb. But anyway, I'm glad we just stuck with one. But yeah, to answer your question, Miller, it was that piece was a very integral part for me, because I was in my kitchen one day and the tune came to me. So I'm always tunes and things, I'm always creating in my head. And so when that tune came to me, I just, for whatever reason, I felt that it is about power. And I walk through life believing in the magic of life. I believe that as human beings, children of the Creator, we all have so much power and we don't use. Now, scientists will say, and I'm sure, and I'm not going to say this as eloquently or as articulately as it needs to be said. But I think we all can agree that we don't use, there's a large part of our brain that we do not use, according to scientists. I also feel there's a large part of our spiritual essence that we could use more. So, um, the power that be, the power that be me, the power that be, the power that lives in me, is something, is a call that I believe that I have. And I want every single person that I come in contact with, every single person that I talk to, starting from the two beautiful children that was the vessel that they came from. I want every person to realize that there is a power that lives inside of them, no matter what you believe, that there is. If you're a child of the Creator, if you made it through the birth canal, you are here for a reason, you have purpose. So when that came to me, it was just a natural fit for me to fit it in here. I had an opportunity to put it in the program. In the beginning, in the first program, we just said we said the power that be, the power that be me throughout. I don't think we said the power that lives in me. But this time around, changing things, allowing different things to come to me, I was like, well, I want now to say not just that the power that be me, because I know some people might have a problem with the grammar of it all, but it's clear if you say the power lives in me, that feels good to say. And I want, particularly young people, I want young people to really understand that no matter what they're going through and how they're navigating this very complex world, that they do have power. They do have they have the power to control their destiny, and to starting by believing in themselves. Whether you choose to believe, I'm not going to tell people to believe in a higher power. Believe in yourself, because what I believe is that as humans, we are in a partnership with our Creator. So even if you think you don't believe, if you believe in yourself, you are believing in a higher power. So there's that.
I wanted to go back just quickly because your exchange with Jeremy was reminding me of a question that we got in the registration form. Somebody asked how this partnership between your group and Live Arts came to be, and whether we might partner with you again in the future. Some of you, all of you, and anyone who has thoughts about that is welcome to jump in.
Hi, I can jump in real quick. And hi, Jeremy. I can't see who all is on around. Yeah. So the partnership started because one of the Live Arts leadership members very graciously asked if I would mind participating in a diversity, equity, and inclusion working group for, I may be calling it the wrong thing, Jeremy, but working group, as sort of like a committee under the auspices of the board, under the auspices of the leadership, to try to be more, think more in a more diverse ways and more inclusive ways and more equitable ways about how Live Arts can really shift gears a little bit and reach out into the community to people who are not necessarily keyed into or on the Live Arts lists, just to create a more diverse, not just for the audience, but as far as productions and performances. So once I was on that subgroup, Jeremy asked me if I would mind, seeing if we ladies would mind putting on this performance again, because I guess everybody had heard about it from 2019. And then if we were, well, I'm editing, if we were bold enough to try to, do it again in a virtual platform. And I said, well, of course, right away, I said, I'd have to ask Mari, number one, and all the ladies to see if they could be on board, because everybody's really busy, the challenges. And so I approached Mari with it, and she gave it some thought, because was incredibly busy between work, between college, courses, finishing up. So she gave it some thought and got back with me and said, and we discussed, I think, like a broad up scope of what it might mean for, and we, to back up a little bit, we had already been asked ever since we did it in 2019 over at Belmont Arts Collaborative Theater. People had just been asking, can you guys do this again? Somebody had asked, can we do it at one of our local community centers out here where I live? And so it was very nice to know and wonderful to know that the intention behind us doing it and behind Marty's vision for really just reaching out and love and making an impact on the Charlottesville community in light of what happened in 2017. And so that goal was met already in 2019 by the first performance. And we wanted to perform it again, but we didn't know how. Oh, I had also put in a proposal with the city of Charlottesville for Unity Days 2020. And it was looking really good. And then of course, we all know what happened. So it was, again, almost like divinely ordered when I got into this equity group, and that Jeremy reached out to me. So even, regardless, we may have probably were going to be doing it during Unity Days, but even though that didn't come through, it was already ordered, I think, that this was something that we needed in our community. And not in the wonderful thing about the virtual format is it has a huge reach. One of our members has discovered some distant family, I think, and some of her ancestry research, and they're in South Africa, and they actually viewed. So that was how the relationship began in that regard. And and so of course, because we started out doing it live, I did speak to Jeremy and ask what would be the opportunities maybe for us to do it live once everything got back to in person. And he was very enthusiastic and all the way, saying, yes, we would love to host you all to do it live. So the partnership is cemented now, I think, and I'm really excited about that. And I know all the ladies, and I'm not sure how, I know not everybody may be able to participate, because the first group, the initial group, I think there were 11 or 12 of us who, and maybe at least 10 of us did monologues, but we didn't know that we were going to get this kind of, I guess, appeal to the community. And so even if some people, it may be different people in and out, depending on the performance, but we really are looking forward to partnering with Live Arts, I'm sure, again, and maybe doing other things in the community too.
That was amazing and very comprehensive. But Jeremy, if you have anything that you want to add, feel free.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. I think that was pretty comprehensive. Yeah. I think that the funny part was I was aware that it was going on in 2019 when it had happened. I think that was the same weekend we had a show opening, and it was my first as artistic director, so I wasn't able to get over to BAC.
Yeah.
But I had that postcard still on my desk at that point in time. So it would have been impossible for me to ignore it when we started talking about all that. But it did. Initially, we had talked about even just doing like single monologues in the coffee shop series, and then it sort of had like a couple of like full production iterations, and landed on what we landed on. I think it's just really lovely and wonderful. And yeah, we are absolutely. Obviously we're in leadership transition mode, more of that to come later. But this is exactly the kind of work that theater at its highest can really engage in. Is it's doing something more than just telling stories. It's doing a lot more than just telling stories. And I think that one of the really exciting things about the model of this production is that there's no limit to these stories that could be told. so an entire new cast of monologues, could very well be a future iteration of this thing. It could be anything you want it to be. So yeah, I feel really lucky to have gotten to be involved, and yeah, I just feel really lucky to have been involved. So thank you.
That was actually the
Thank you.
perfect transition to another question that we got in the registration for the event, which is, how did you all choose? And a few of you have kind of spoken to this in your introductions period, but how did you all choose which women you wanted to sort of focus on in this particular iteration of this production? And Diane and Kathy have already spoken to this a little bit, but if you wanted to just, anybody else who, well, and actually a lot of you have sort of mentioned this, but it was a question in the registration. I just want to make sure everybody has a chance. Maybe, anyway, jump in.
Well, I can say I didn't choose, I was chosen. And I don't know if anyone else has felt that way about their the woman that they represented and they portrayed. But there's absolutely no question that, for me, that this particular ancestor, who only had a street named after her in Washington, D.C., at the time that I started portraying her, no one really knew who Nannie Helen Burroughs was. And she spent almost her entire life here, from the time she was 5 years old till she died. They just knew a street in Northeast Washington. And she had built this school from scratch. And she not only built a school, but she's the one that tried to get an anti-lynching bill. She worked on so much. She spoke around the world. She was a journalist. She had radio programs. She did everything. And no one knew who she was. And then all of a sudden, up crops the 12 things a Negro should do. And that would seem to be the only other thing they knew about her, other than the street and that. And there was just so much more. So I feel like I was chosen. And since then, there have been several books written by scholars about her life and her works. All of her writings have been compiled into books. And last year, I was asked to portray Nannie Helen Burroughs at Juneteenth at Monticello. And of course, COVID happened. So that didn't happen. But I was just so pleased that she now was starting to get some acknowledgement for her work. She died in 1960s, early 1960s. And it's like, it's taken this long for someone to know who this woman is. So I used to always say, I am more than an avenue, because that's all anybody knew was Nannie Helen Burroughs Avenue. Well, who is that? So I was chosen. So, and I'm grateful that she chose me, and she still talks to me and tells me what. Usually performances for me with her are about a specific thing. I'll get on my bandwagon about a specific thing because she told me this is what you need to deal with. So, it's been from one thing to another, the Me Too movement, the Black Lives Matter movement, what's happening with everything that's been going on and this whole thing about critical race theory in schools. She would have me talking about that, but that's another story. But I was chosen.
And the funny thing is, so we read The Forgotten Sisterhood, and that's where Nannie and Mary McLeod, Eugenia Hawkins Brown, who was a part of the first, part of the closing program. The interesting thing about Kathy, when I think I came across you on Facebook. So Kathy and I go back a long time, right? And I came across, so in my mind, I knew, or I had jotted down, that I wanted to do Nannie. And I somehow, I'm rarely on Facebook, but I believe something popped up with you on Facebook. I reached out to Kathy, just like I reached out to Yogi, just in terms of speaking about how divine things happened, how divinely things came into being. So I had reached out to you, we missed each other. And then I was looking for Yogi, the dancer, and I was looking for Kathy, right? But I had put it out in my mind. I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna have to accept if we don't connect. I decided to go to Dance Africa in DC, and I went, and then I went back, right? For some reason I was like, I don't feel like going home, so I'm gonna go back. And it was down the street from where I lived at the time. And would you know it, Kathy sat on my right and Yogi sat at my left. And I was like, you, we need to talk. And that's how, so it was just so divine, and in terms of this iteration, again, I had taken the 2 hour program and written it and separated it and made 4 different productions, each called We Are the Ones We've Been Waiting For, but each had a different theme. One was Our Ancestors Breathing, another was a Beautiful Revolution. I cannot remember the other 2. So I really split the monologues into those 4 different days. But once, it was clear that we needed to pick one day, the Ancestors Breathing, not even knowing that Live Arts was down the road from where Heather, our dearly departed, had been killed, the Ancestors Breathing was the one that had to be. There was just no choice for me. That was a very powerful piece, paying homage, and just in light of how this whole thing came about, in light of how Vivian started this, when she started it, the mission behind it, and the fact that I chose to put these loved ones in there, it just seemed like that would be it. So that's how for this one it was Anna, Harriet, which I didn't mention, I portray Harriet Ann Jacobs, the slave, and Nanny and Lucy Craft became a part of, for this one.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in about Anna Murray Douglas to talk about why I wanted to do Anna Murray Douglas. And Anna came to me through another member, because all of a sudden I wondered, once we talk about Frederick Douglass all the time, nobody ever talks about his wife. And I'll be honest, the only wife I'd heard, because I just hadn't heard anything about Anna. So the only wife I'd heard a little bit about was the second wife, who was a white woman. I think that he had met in some of his European travels. However, Anna Murray Douglas came by way of another friend of ours who would really work. She was like an ad hoc member of the group. She would send different articles and things like that. She's a real research person. And when she and I was talking about Frederick Douglass one day, and all of a sudden we bounced on, well, what about his wife? Well, she sends me another couple of days later an article, a biography written by his wife, by their daughter, their oldest daughter. And it was all about Anna. And it really moved me so much, because Anna she helped me to be able to say, I want to portray Frederick Douglass and his wife and mention his family, his children. They had a daughter who died when she was 9. To humanize slaves. We are so often, we hear slaves, we hear the word just thrown around here and there. But slaves is the brand that was on our ancestors, but they were people first, human beings created by God. And it was so, Anna touched me so much, because she was very powerful, very much of a pioneer. She herself was one of the first agents and had an underground railroad, had an underground railroad organization. She was very active, but she did this work quietly. So there's so much strength in her quiet character. And I will be honest, I said to Mari once when we talked that I was a little bit concerned, if you remember, Mari, that I don't know if I can really represent Anna as I should. As I feel like I want to. I think she was really mild-mannered. There would be people that would come to their home when Freddie really started getting very popular and everything. People would come to their home and they wanted to sit at the table where Anna was, because they knew how much power she had. They knew what she was doing, even keeping everything, really going in their home. Because even in the monologue, I mentioned that the household skills, that management skills she learned on her first job when she was a teenager working for that Montel family. the French family, that those housekeeping skills and house management skills really served her well in her life. And one of the things that she did was her and Frederick would have different, I wouldn't say parties, but gatherings to discuss the urgency of the hour of what was going on with abolitionism at the time. And people wanted to get close to Anna, but she deferred to her husband and she deferred to the big picture of the work, the work that they collectively did. That was what having him go on these trips and all. And whenever he would come back, she would have a big party for her husband. So they had real life situations, real life difficulties, but it was very sad though. She died of a stroke. So and there's still more, like Kathy was saying just a few minutes ago. I feel like there's things that I might, whenever I do her again, that's so many stuff that I've learned about her. It's something else that I might want to share also in the monologue that I didn't know before, when I did it. So I just wanted to put a plug in for Anna Mary Douglas and why I selected her. I kind of feel like she selected me in a way.
That's beautiful.
And can I share, Vivian, I remember reading a book about Frederick Douglass's two wives. It was a fiction book. I don't know, did you read that as well?
I have not, and I have it on my list.
It is incredible.
But yeah, because
you live
I gotta read these other things so that I can get a more full, continue to fill in the story.
Yeah, definitely a good read. Thank you. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Yes, it was. All of you ladies were incredible. All of you were incredible.
Just want to second, third, fourth, and fifth, and sixth that. And I enjoyed the performance on Thursday so much. Did anyone else want to speak to, put in a plug for their person?
I can share for Lucy Craft Laney. Actually, I was assigned Lucy Craft Lady. So when Mari emailed me and said, will you do this? I was like, of course, I will do whatever you ask me to do. I will follow you. And then as I started to learn more about her, I was like, oh, this is who I'm supposed to play. There's so many things that I feel like I can connect to her. I feel like she kind of laid the foundation for the things that I'm able to do. She started a kindergarten, and for about 12 years of my career, my focus was on early childhood education. Again, another question mark to me why I've never heard about her. So there were so many things in her life, her starting the school, recognizing the opportunity for early childhood education, providing opportunities for children at that time that no one thought that they should learn the classics or anything beyond a trade, but she defied that. So those things were just really important to me, having worked in education and having, when I originally lived in Charlottesville, having a after school group for 5th and 6th grade girls where we did those things. It was an enrichment program. They did community service. We actually did community service. They chose their projects. They did their projects in the community to support children and other things that they were interested in. Like all of those things came flooding back, and I just really felt connected to her. And I think that is also why I was able to portray her with the feeling, because all the things that she talked about and that she wrote about, how she felt about education, the importance of it, and what she would do to make sure that children had it, I could really connect with all of those things. So where Kathy said that she was called, I was assigned and had the same kind of outcome, and I would continue to share about her. And actually the book, The Forgotten Sisterhood, was the book that she was in as well. And that was something that I felt like, okay, other people need to know about these ladies who were pioneers in education. So I shared that with my previous agency, which was focused on early childhood education and working with college students, for them to read so that they could share this more in the community and with the field, to recognize and count these ladies as pioneers among all of the classical people that we hear about that, you know, set the path for education. I think that they should be recognized too. So I will continue to share her story.
That's beautiful.
Is Susan still around?
I'm interested in finding out why Vivian, how that particular Rachel Bagby piece.
That's what I wanted to ask.
Yeah, I'm just curious as to how you saw me doing that, because like Kathy, I had been used to doing feisty Black women parts like Bessie Delaney. And for me, that was like, what is this? Because it was like a mouthful. It's like Dika dialect, and I just felt old timey. I don't know how to say this, but I think you laughed a little bit because I didn't have my glasses on and I saw it. I couldn't read it. I said, what is this part? Because it was something that was just totally different to read, you know, that kind of poetry and that kind of flow, because I really had not read poetry before. But I was just curious about that, about how you saw me reading that, where I was quite comical in my first time looking at it.
Actually, it was Mary. Well, the book was my book called Divine Daughters. And I forget, there's a subtitle, but I forget it right now. And it's a beautiful, amazing book written by actually a local person, Rachel Bagby. That's a whole big story right there, but it's a really good book. And Mary, I shared another part in it with Mary saying, can we use this? And Mari, I defer to you to tell how you came up with that for Diane, the other one. Other poem.
Yeah. You know, I hate to keep saying, I don't hate to say it, because it's only me feeling that I try to speak as if everyone's in the room all the time. But I guess you know me by now that it's impossible for me to speak without saying that I'm guided.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know that Atalia had a connection, that she would have such a connection to, I didn't know the details of her connection, to Lucy Craft Laney, but I was guided to. I opened the book and there were words in the poem that escapes me right now, because I have to tell you guys, I'm really, really tired. So my brain's not functioning as it did for all our other previous conversations. But there were words in that poem that spoke to me with respect to the unsaids. You know, as a Black woman living in America, there's, and Diane, your delivery was spot on.
Yes.
First time, and your delivery was spot on this time.
Yes.
You know, I love it when you say raise you up straight jacket proper. I was reared by two Panamanian grandmothers, my maternal and my paternal grandmothers. And let me tell you, I hold doors for everybody. I am extremely respectful of my elders, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, because they reared me straight jacket, reared me up. That was their desire, to rear me straight jacket proper. From the way I carried myself on. So the unsaids, you know, all the talking, all the sharing that we did about our ancestors and about our own lives, we're traumatized people. That is the reality. We are traumatized people, and we are so polite as women, as Black women being traumatized, that we care about how everyone else feels. Everyone in the room. I speak as if everyone is in the room, and I care about how everybody feels in the room. So in addition to being traumatized by being a Black woman in society, being low on the totem pole, we also bear the burden of wanting people to be comfortable. So when that poem speaks about the unsaids and how it's in your body, You know what I'm saying? That there was no way I had to. I opened that book and I'm putting everything together, and that had to go right back in there because again, we were sharing, finding the goal was to find creative ways to share the stories, our stories. So when Vivian sent me that book, I don't, I just, and I came across that I had to put that poem in because it speaks to who we are and what we shared every time for a year when we got together and we talked, you know. So
You all are so fascinating, and you have so much insight into so many different subjects that we probably actually could easily talk for another hour or two. But we are kind of coming up on 7 o'clock. And so I wanted to make sure to get any sort of, since I did say that this would be around an hour, I don't want to take up your entire evening, but first I wanted to invite Betty to speak because I feel, Betty, that we have not heard as much from you as we have from some of your colleagues. And so I wanted to give you the opportunity to talk about your experience a little bit.
Oh no, like I said, it was great. I felt like everyone that was involved, I felt like we're a family. It was motivating to be around all of these lovely, beautiful women. I wanted to say this in the beginning that because of my sister, I was always comfortable in my skin as a Black child and a Black woman because from a very young age, she was always self-aware and she always had me in the mix, learning, exposed me to African dance, exposed me to culture, and I truly appreciate her for that. Because of her, I was always conscious and culture and aware of and comfortable of the skin I wore. So thank you, Mariela,
and thank you for making
that.
me cry in front of all these
it's real.
people.
It's the absolute truth. The absolute truth. I would not have had that experience because, our parents, they didn't do that. So because of you, it's definitely
Thank you.
proud of my skin. So yes.
That means so much to me. That means so much to me.
Yeah.
And I want to just say that Betty, you know that you are honorary member of the LCBW by now. When we get geared up again, we want to see your face in the place.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, I will be there.
We're stuck at the hip with you now.
Yes, thank you.
Anyone who's attending and wanted to ask a question that I haven't gotten to, please feel free to drop it into the chat right now. But otherwise, I would just love to hear any last thoughts, any things you want to make sure that you have gotten out before we wrap up this event. And so I'll just let anybody jump in who's interested in doing that.
I want to just say thank you to all these ladies for trusting me and for allowing me to humbly, and I pray that I was humble in my delivery, my requests. I want to just thank you for giving it your all because it is apparent that each one of you here and Yamika, who wasn't able to make it, that she'll be here tomorrow, but um, you gave it your all. You took what T pulled from you, but you had to have something to pull from, and that's you all are incredibly strong, powerful, brilliant, intelligent women, you know, and that. We all have our insecurities, but you fundamentally know that. And I do believe that the connection that we have and why you guys lasted is because you all have a cause greater than yourselves. You all have your own things that you're doing that I want to support. I want you guys to share more with me, about what you're doing but I just have to say thank you, thank you for being the incredible, amazing, powerful, and powerful human beings that you are. You are also the revolutionaries. We spoke about powerful revolutionaries, but you all on this line are also powerful and power-filled revolutionaries. Thank you.
I want to just add that young girls need to see this performance, virtual or some kind of way. We need to get it out there for young girls of all races to know the power of these forgotten women. And I thank you, and I was honored to be a part of it. It meant everything. Congratulations to each and every one of you.
I
I'm
couldn't
just gonna
agree more.
echo.
And enjoyed watching with my daughter on Thursday. That's all I wanted to say. Okay, go ahead. Keep going.
Oh,
Keep going.
beautiful.
I'm just going to echo Ms. Holt and push it even further. I think all young people, girls and boys, need to see this. I think it's important that those that are African Americans know the power of their ancestors, the story of their histories, their legacy, the legacy that they are walking in. And I think that other children need to learn that as well. It is something we do not teach in our schools. So we have to find other ways to educate them all so that they all have an appreciation for the history of this country. And I would like to thank all of the ladies for the opportunity, like I said, to walk through this with them. I took so much away from each of you, and I appreciate you for sharing your spirit, for sharing your gifts and your talents with me, and helping me to grow through this process over all of these years. Since way back in 2019 when I got Vivian's email. So I thank all of you for sharing that and for continuing to be my ladies, to be my family. And I would also like to just thank Live Arts.
Yes.
You all created a space for us that was comfortable. We were able to share our whole selves with you, and I thank you for that. That is not something that, as Black women, we walk into spaces and automatically think that's going to be the atmosphere. So I thank all of you for creating that space and holding that space and allowing us to fill that space. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. Our forever friends,
Yeah.
Live Art and Lighthouse, our forever friends.
Yes, they did an amazing job. It was wonderful to have them involved as well. And thank you. It was our pleasure and our privilege, and I'm sure that Jeremy would agree. And just before, Jeremy, I see your hand, but I wanted to say that in the chat, I got a question. If someone wants to get involved with you all, is there a mechanism to do that? Are you accepting new members? Like moving forward with this project, will there be a possibility that others could join in the collective?
Absolutely. Marty and I, and some of the other ladies, well, actually all of us have said, we really miss, because the project was on officially 1 year long. That's what the award was for. But we've obviously, as you can see, we've gone way past, because it started in 2018 and finished up in end of 2019. But we definitely want to resume once. We're not quite sure what it's going to look like yet, but we want to resume. I mean, we're always talking about things that's going on of concern. It's when women come together around the table, we can get things, we work out some things. And we are missing that from the every month meeting. And not all the time is that we were discussing books. We were also discussing articles. I mean, very contemporary articles with very real world problems that we are as Black women facing. And we also watched film a couple of times. So we definitely want to find ourselves back to that. So we are just hoping that will happen for us as things continue, hopefully get really normal again. We'll see where, and if there's someone who's interested, they can send me something, I can just save the chat or whatever.
Great. And also,
with the name.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
You're free to email miller@livearts.org and we can put people together. And if you all ever want us to put anything in our newsletter, we would, of course, be more than happy to amplify a call.
And thanks to Live Arts so much. Also, I wanted to just get to say to Jeremy and to also relate that to all of the crew that worked so hard, really capturing and working with Marty to be sure our things that we wanted, in as much as possible, were responded to, and it meant everything based on all the feedback I've gotten from friends, family, acquaintances far and wide, everybody is really wanting just to see more of this kind of work and this kind of theater. But so I just wanted to thank them so much for giving, as I think Natalia said, giving us the space to walk into and be our authentic selves. It means a lot. And of course, to all the ladies, I love all of you and can't wait till we get together and work together on other things.
We love you more.
Absolutely. Jeremy, did you have any last thoughts?
I just similarly wanted to thank all of you for trusting us and doing the thing. So thank you.
Jeremy, you're my new favorite white man.
Jeremy, may I add that your voice is amazing?
It is. Oh my God, yes.
We made him do the voicemail for the theater.
Yes, 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 yes. That's yes.
You can find me at 434-977-4177.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, amazing.
I don't think that we could possibly end on a better note than that. Thank you so much. I've enjoyed this conversation. It was totally such a pleasure and a joy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate all.
Love you guys.
Love to all.
So
Thank
nice to see
you.
everybody.
We look forward to
Yeah.
working with you again in the future.
And thanks all of the friends of mine, they're friends of mine and others who attended tonight.
Thank you for coming.
So thank you all for coming.
Yeah, Beverly.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Be
Bye.
safe, Benjamin.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Peace.